In the unspeakable cold of space, a fireball erupts. The Space Shuttle Columbia was the most advanced vehicle ever built.
We have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national...
First of a fleet designed to take men and women into orbit around the Earth and home again.
The flight of Columbia, the International Research
Look at the chunks coming off of it. Yeah. What the heck is that? I don't know, but I see.
This program counts down the final 60 minutes of this catastrophic event. It is a story about the loss of 7 lives on a mission that was doomed from the start, and about scars that time will never heal. February the 2nd, 2003. 280 kilometers above the Earth, a team of NASA's top astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia prepare to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere.
Okay, Houston, go for the burn.
Paris, Tel Aviv, Moscow, Beijing, Vancouver, New York, London, then Paris again. Around the world in 90 minutes. Blazing in its orbit at 28,000 kilometers per hour, the astronauts on the shuttle experience 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every day. The hour leading up to Columbia's re-entry is a flurry of activity at the John F. Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida.
Let's get to work, shall we?
The man who must bring the Columbia to Earth is LeRoy Cain, flight director. Just 39, he has risen through the ranks of NASA thanks to his iron nerve.
Okay, getting ready for the deorbit burn here in a few minutes.
It's not a job, clearly, for everyone or anyone that's not inclined to do that kind of work. I'm a person who sort of thrives on pressure.
Cain leads a team of technicians who must decide if conditions are right to bring the most complex flying vessel ever built safely to the ground. This is a rare interview with the one man who knows most about what happened that day.
Fundamentally, the flight director is responsible for the safety and success of the mission, the spacecraft, and the flight crew.
Okay, getting ready for the deorbit burn here in a few minutes. How do those targets look to you, guidance?
They look good, flight.
At 8:03 a.m., Cain continues his checklist.
Okay, flight controllers, we are through step 3.9. Go, no go for the burn. Fido, go.
The shuttle is computer-operated from mission control. It's up to Cain to check every system to make sure he can get the astronauts home alive.
Go. EPS.
We are go, flight.
Flight surgeon.
The program essentially entrusts the mission operations team to execute the mission. And they, combine with the flight crew as the ops agent, if you will, for the space shuttle program, they are entrusted with this crown jewel of manned spaceflight to go execute the mission and do it safely and do it successfully and do everything within your ability to get the vehicle and the crew back at the end of the mission. So trust is huge.
It's all systems go. When Cain gives the order, Columbia's rockets will fire, slow the vessel down, and leave orbit. Columbia mission commander Rick Husband has dedicated his life to being an astronaut and earned his place as one of NASA's brightest stars. Canadian astronaut Julie Payette flew with Rick Husband on a previous shuttle mission.
We were both rookies, new guys on the block.
which is, you know, a particular bond because you experience this new thing, space flight, together. Rick is the Texan from Amarillo and spoke with a very distinctive Texan accent. And here I was, the little girl from Montreal. It was a joy to fly and to have this experience with him.
When I was 4 years old and the Mercury project first got started, I was in front of the TV for every one of the launches. And the whole time I was growing up, as long as I can remember, anytime anyone asked me what I wanted to be, it was, I want to be an astronaut.
Capcom flight. We're go for the burn. They can perform the maneuver on time.
Columbia, Houston, you're go for the burn and you can make the maneuver on time.
Okay, Houston, go for the burn.
Bringing Columbia back into the atmosphere is a critical job. It takes the shuttle from the cold of space into the raging inferno of the atmosphere. G. Scott Hubbard was a top scientist at NASA, one of the shuttle's main designers.
The shuttle is a very, very complex system, probably the most complex flying machine humanity has ever built. It takes off like a rocket, it orbits like a spacecraft, it lands like an airplane.
LeRoy Cain is the one who guides Columbia back through the atmosphere. He was born for the job.
I perform well under pressure. It's just a gift. It's not anything that I can take credit for. It's a gift, and some people have it, some people don't. And it becomes pretty clear pretty quick for folks that are gonna be effective in those environments versus those who are not. It is a high-stress environment, and if you don't thrive and perform well in that kind of environment, it's really not a good job for you to be in.
Cain's team have never seen him flinch. Today, that will change forever. A 1,000 miles north, not far from Washington, D.C., a man who had spent his career at sea had no idea the Space Shuttle Columbia was about to consume a year of his life.
I'm not an aviator, and I've never flown in the shuttle and have no relationship to NASA. I don't follow these things particularly closely, and I must admit that probably a lot of people in the United States don't either. By the, after 100 missions, the things are not followed very closely. And I did not know that it was scheduled to return to Earth that morning.
Admiral Gaiman will soon be tasked to find out whether LeRoy Cain and his control team made mistakes that cost lives. The crew of the Space Shuttle Columbia prepare to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and begin descent into Cape Canaveral. They're scheduled to touch down in exactly 1 hour, 4 minutes.
Okay.
So what's the weather looking like in Florida?
Weather conditions are sunny and clear, perfect for landing.
They were NASA's best and brightest. Willie McCool, pilot. Kalpana Chawla, engineer. Michael Anderson, payload commander. Laurel Clark, zoologist. David Brown, flight surgeon. Ilan Ramon, electronics expert.
We have such a new and young crew, and we work together for so long that the relationship is something you don't quite understand.
There's always the potential for something going wrong.
You know, we try not to think about those things.
You do. I remember Gemini and Apollo quite late into the 60s, and then Skylab and the early shuttle.
It may be something which only a handful can do. But if you really like what you do, then you've never really lost anything.
As an Israeli astronaut, they look at you as a dream that they could never have dreamed of.
But the first free moment I have, I'm excited about just looking down at our planet.
This was a unique mission. There were no spacewalks, no work done to the space station. The shuttle bay was filled with a science lab to conduct experiments strictly designed to help humankind learn about long-term space survival. The experiments ranged from tests on animals, fish, and ants, to the study of cancer, all designed to help human beings escape from Earth.
Where did we come from? Are we alone? Where are we going? What happens when a living system leaves the planet of origin, leaves this Earth? I think it is critical for understanding how life works to understand the role of gravity. And if we're ever going to take the probably 3-year trip to Mars with people, we have to learn a lot more about how you fix the problems that weightlessness creates. Weightlessness for human beings is a lot like aging. So what the Columbia was doing scientifically was a little baby step along that way.
It's unbelievable that the human body, who has evolved for millions of years, and for most of us to spend several decades under gravity before we go to space, and then we go there, and a couple of days later, it's just like it's always been in weightlessness, and we have to readapt to gravity 10 or 12 days later.
Despite all the training, nothing can prepare astronauts for the experience of zero gravity.
In a quarter of a second, we just go from 3 times heavier to, oh my. You're still strapped into your seat, but you can tell you're already floating in it, and then stuff starts floating in the cabin. And then your brain says, whoa, nobody told me about this. What's this about?
Space shuttle missions are bracketed in dangerous bookends. Launch and re-entry. Launch was 16 days earlier.
Commander Rick Husband, as he is currently in the White Room, our pilot, Willie McCool. This is his first flight.
At launch, the Columbia weighs 4.5 million pounds. Much of that weight is fuel, housed in an orange foam-covered tank directly under the shuttle. Basically, the Columbia is hardwired to a big bomb.
Go for main engine start.
Space exploration is a risky business. It is foolish for anyone who's in that arena to pretend to the public that there aren't significant challenges and that there aren't risks, including the risk of death and tragedy. The shuttle is a risky vehicle. It needs to be replaced.
The world watched stupefied in 1986 when the Space Shuttle Challenger turned into a fireball. This terrible image scarred NASA's safety record. Almost 2 decades later, NASA still feared another disaster. Columbia's mission had been delayed 13 times over 2 years because of technical snags. The time had finally come.
2, 1. We have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national and international space research experiments.
NASA had been under a lot of pressure to get Columbia into space after so many setbacks.
When you're in a program It's got a lot of schedule pressure, a lot of budget pressure, a lot of performance requirements. The tendency that grew up over time was for you to get launch fever. Let's just go ahead and get this thing done, okay? We got the right stuff.
Once Columbia had left the launch pad, it fought to escape the Earth's gravity.
That's when the ride is very rough. It's shaking inside, there's a lot of movement. It's actually hard to interact with our systems. About midway, it starts turning and then does a 180 to face back up with respect to space. Before that, the space shuttle was facing toward Earth. And inside, that's when we start feeling the pressures of acceleration, the G's. As we go into thinner and thinner atmosphere, faster and faster, higher and higher. And that's when you feel that you're pressed into your seat.
Solid rocket booster separation confirmed. Guidance now converging. Columbia's onboard computers command.
The Columbia launch appeared to be a textbook success.
Precise target in space for maintenance.
They're getting ready to take a look outside the window, and immediately after we pitched up, and we're looking at it through the overhead windows.
8 minutes later, the shuttle was in orbit 300 kilometers above the Earth, racing at 28,000 kilometers per hour.
To you, right? No, you're not. You're gonna plug in that one. I'm sorry. We talked about. Yeah. Okay. 2 minutes to enter airplace.
Now, 45 minutes from their scheduled return to the Earth, Columbia's astronauts face a lethal problem.
You take a look at this.
One day after launch, a team inspecting video discovered that a piece of foam from the main fuel tank had come loose and hit the shuttle's left wing during liftoff.
Whoa. Can you highlight it? Yeah, no problem.
This was nothing new, but usually the pieces were popcorn size. This chunk of foam was big.
What do you think?
We have to get this upstairs.
The piece was about the size of a 50-centimeter television screen, but weighed nearly a kilo.
The foam has to cover irregular areas on the surface of this external tank. It's a huge amount of acreage. I mean, you're covering hundreds and hundreds of square feet or square meters. The foam doesn't stick perfectly. And so every flight, literally every flight of the shuttle, some of it comes off.
Here we go. Yeah.
It was, in NASA speak, an in-family problem. The question now was the damage to the shuttle deadly?
Yeah, we're checking that. We got the flight controller power on. We're working through the rest of it as well. Thanks. Sounds good.
After 16 days in orbit, the Space Shuttle Columbia prepares to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere.
Max and GNC, you ready? Fine, Max, we're ready. GNC's go.
Back on Earth, a team of experts have found evidence of a freak accident during the launch, which could endanger the mission.
It was probably a day or not more than 2 days after we launched, and I had seen some video. At the time, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was foam. I didn't know if it had impacted the wing. I knew that the engineering teams were off looking at it to determine whether it was something that we needed to be or should be concerned about.
On January the 17th, after 2 days in space, an object fell off the shuttle. It was almost certainly a piece of wing damaged by the foam impact. It would take nearly 2 months for the investigators to discover this from Air Force tracking. The reason no one knew lay at the heart of the shuttle program, one that doomed Columbia. As a flying machine, the shuttle was a dumb bird.
Unlike Star Trek or unlike a science fiction series, there is not aboard the shuttle some all-powerful computer that's analyzing thousands of inputs and telling the crew there's a problem. The shuttle is based in the technology of the late 60s and early 70s. The primitive computers that are on board compared to your laptop aren't hooked up to sensors, and even if they were, they're not capable of doing a lot of real-time analysis.
It went unnoticed at the time because from the command capsule on the Columbia, the crew could not see the wings.
What would have been required to actually see a hole in the wing? Former astronaut came in and demonstrated that it would have taken a spacewalk. Wouldn't have been impossible, but it would have been very difficult.
Unaware, the astronauts held their first press conference with Earth the next day.
Hey, Alpha, this is Columbia. How you doing over there?
We're doing great. We're so glad to see you guys made it into orbit.
Yeah, we're glad to be here too. And everybody's doing a great job, and I'm really excited to be able to talk to you guys. One space lab to another big old
Linda Ham was Columbia's mission manager. It was her responsibility to determine what damage the foam might have done to the shuttle's wing.
Before we go in there, I need to have the exact numbers. Do you understand?
I'll get on them and I'll get it to you this afternoon.
She chaired a series of conference calls about the potential danger.
Okay, we received the data from the systems integration guys of the potential ranges of sizes and impact angles and where it might have hit. But the thermal analysis does not indicate that there is a potential for a burn-through.
No burn-through means no catastrophic damage, and localized heating damage would mean a towel replacement?
Well, it would mean possible impact to turnaround repairs and that sort of thing, but we don't see any kind of safety of flight issue here.
In other words, it's just damage to the tiles. And they keep insisting that there's no threat to life and no threat to the mission.
No safety of flight, no issue for this mission, nothing we're gonna have to do different. There might be a turnaround?
Right.
At NASA, turnaround means delay, not danger. All shuttles come home battered and have to be serviced before returning to space.
Although we could have some significant tile damage here, we don't see a safety of flight issue.
Would be a turnaround issue only.
Right.
Linda, we can't hear the speaker. Linda.
He was just reiterating that he does not believe that there's any kind of burn-throughs. It's more of a turnaround issue, similar to what we've had on other flights.
There are many other examples like this where these mission management team and other teams too, because of their lack of curiosity and the way the cards were stacked against anybody who was worried, just could not get the system to recognize that there was a danger.
All right. Thanks for your support. Keep up the good work. And we'll meet again Monday at 8 o'clock. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Some NASA engineers were still worried. They requested that the US Air Force and other intelligence agencies try to get satellite images of the shuttle in space to see if the wing was smashed up.
No, I don't believe that's the case because
NASA didn't ask the Department of Defense to photograph the shuttle. The mission management felt it was not necessary.
either formally or informally. You know, that is why I do go.
Linda Ham chaired another conference call with the mission management team. Again, the foam impact was on the agenda.
There's not much we can do about it.
Yeah, as everybody knows, we took a hit on the left, somewhere on the left wing leading edge, and we are also talking about what you can do in the event that we do have some damage there.
Right, okay. So we ought to pull that along.
With years of experience in foam collision, the team agreed the damage was not critical.
112 or whatever the flight was, just to make sure.
Yeah, and we'll do that.
Then Ham delivered an explicit admission. NASA was helpless.
I really don't think there's much we can do. So it's not really a factor with this flight because there's nothing we can do about it.
Okay.
Engineer Scott Hubbard thinks his colleagues at NASA made a fatal mistake.
At 82 seconds after launch, the shuttle is moving very fast, more than 2.5 times the speed of sound. When the foam fell off, it began to slow down because it is very light. The difference in the speed of the foam and the speed of the shuttle at that point was about 500 miles an hour. So in a sense, the shuttle ran into the foam.
NASA management had 5 separate meetings about the foam strike. Flight director LeRoy Cain was in those meetings. All ended with no action being taken.
Subject, help with debris hit. The Space Shuttle program was asked directly if they had any interest or desire in requesting resources outside of NASA to view the orbiter. They said no. After talking to Phil, I consider it to be a dead issue.
Linda Ham authorized one of her mission team to inform Shuttle Commander Rick Husband of the problem.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah, Steve.
There's one item I'd like to bring to your attention. The item is not even worth mentioning other than wanting to make sure you're not surprised by it in a question from a reporter. During ascent, at approximately 80 seconds, photo analysis shows some debris impacted the orbiter left wing. Experts have reviewed the high-speed photography and there's no concern. We have seen this same phenomenon on several other flights and there's absolutely no concern for entry.
Thanks for letting me know. I've seen this happen. Look, can you get the video up to me so I can have a look and then I'll show it to my crew?
Sure thing. Safe ride home.
Thanks, Steve. Keep up the good work. Columbia, out.
NASA uplinked the tape to the shuttle. Rick Husband showed it to the crew. No one was alarmed. They all knew it had happened before. And raising a fuss would put the entire shuttle program in jeopardy.
As the Columbia management was working on the assessment of this strike, which appears to have hit the orbiter, not the solid rocket boosters, it appears to have hit the shuttle itself, they were very sensitive about what label they would put on this thing. Because they knew that if they put what I consider to be the appropriate label on this thing, which is a serious flight hazard label, it would automatically cancel the next flight. And schedule pressures were so intense that they were reluctant to do that.
2 days before their scheduled return to Earth, Husband, McCool, and Chowla ran a complete simulation of re-entry.
And then the RCS hot fire.
Husband and his team were certain. The Columbia was technically ready for touchdown at Cape Canaveral at 9:16 the following morning.
We were very happy to welcome...
They didn't know their spacecraft was lethally damaged. Just over half an hour from their scheduled touchdown, all systems seemed perfectly normal on the Space Shuttle Columbia. In mission control, flight director LeRoy Cain recalls a feeling of total calm.
It was right by the numbers, as I recall. And then we worked with the crew through the post-burn checklist. There was nothing out of the norm. Everything was going really well. The systems were all performing very well. The team was really on top of its game that day.
How do we look for landing? Clear, go flight. Inco.
2 minutes later, the Columbia enters the discernible atmosphere, 200,000 feet above the Earth's surface. The utter cold of space transforms into violent heat on Columbia's hull. The temperature on the shuttle wings soars to 1,400 degrees But the superheated air is entering through the unseen hole caused by the foam hit. The internal structure was never designed to withstand such heat churning inside the left wing. Rick Husband and Willie McCool start the re-entry procedure. It's completely computer-controlled. Only in the case of an emergency would they be forced to override the shuttle's electronic brain. Once re-entry begins, there's no turning back. Columbia slows by 800 kilometers per hour, still traveling faster than any object ever created by humankind. This is the danger zone, losing speed and catching air. But this is normal. It happens on every shuttle re-entry.
You have to go from 17,000 miles an hour to 0, sitting on a runway somewhere, in the span of just a few minutes. That means that you have to give up a huge amount of energy in a short period of time. That translates into a lot of heat.
Inside the command capsule, the astronauts stare in awe at the raging heat outside the glowing windows. Again, normal.
Really bright out there. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be outside now. Like we did before. I don't have to back my point.
In mission control, the weather, not the wing, is on Flight Director LeRoy Cain's mind. The winds are high at Cape Canaveral this morning. Cain's thinking about sending Columbia around for another orbit. At the last minute, he decides conditions are within the margin of safety. He gives approval for the planned touchdown in Florida. Just then, the first sign of trouble. A sensor on the left wing shows the leading edge is 1,650 degrees, hotter than ever recorded on a shuttle re-entry.
Flight, Max. Go ahead, Max. FYI, I've just lost 4 separate temperature transducers on the left-hand side of the vehicle. Hydraulic return temperatures. 2 of them in System 1 and 1 each in Systems 2 and 3.
4 hyd return temps?
To the left outboard and inboard elevons. Okay, is there any...
The hydraulic systems in the wheel are failing. The shuttle can't extend its landing gear. Flight Director Cain knows the shuttle can't land.
4 or 5 seconds of each other. Where's that instrumentation located? They are located on the aft part of...
In mission control, LeRoy Cain does a quick mental calculation. Tires, hydraulics, and elevons are 3 completely different systems. Cain thinks it can only mean one thing.
No commonality.
Computer error.
We began to look around the room and ask the other team members, hey, how's it look? Everything's going fine. And the reason everything else was working fine is because the orbiter was continuing to fly fine. All of the rest of the systems were continuing to function normally.
Right on schedule, the shuttle executes a computer-controlled roll to the right. The maneuver is designed to find some lift, to slow the shuttle even more, and cool down her superheated outer skin. Columbia seems to perform perfectly, but it's in trouble. What the astronauts do not know is that the thrusters are working in overdrive, trying to compensate for the hole in the left wing.
We know now it was firing continuously in order to correct for the wing with the hole in it that was starting to disintegrate.
Right now, look at the trail.
In the skies over Arizona, a group of shuttle watchers get up early to take home videos of the famed Columbia.
Oh, that's a beauty.
There's 7 people in that thing.
Wow.
Look at the chunks coming off of it.
Yeah.
What the heck is that?
I don't know, but I see what you're saying. Ice, maybe?
A few stargazers know more than the astronauts and mission control about Columbia falling apart. This is real footage from Columbia's final minutes, which miraculously survived the crash.
Everything look good to you? Control and rates and everything is nominal, right?
Control's been stable through the rolls we've gone through so far, Flight. We have good trims. I don't see anything out of the ordinary.
All other indications for your hydraulic systems indications are good? They're all good. We've had good quantities all the way across. And the other temps are normal?
This is Cain's worst nightmare. He receives word that the shuttle's flight surfaces are not responding. Without control, Cain has no way to guide Columbia down to Cape Canaveral. Still, he has trouble believing the sensors are right.
Max, tell me again which system's there for? That's all 3 hydraulic systems.
Training and experience have not prepared Cain for this moment.
Board elevon and 2 in the left inboard. Okay, I got you.
Right on schedule, the computer kicks in once more, and Columbia executes a roll reversal, another maneuver to slow the vessel's re-entry speed. And once again, the shuttle performs perfectly. Wing temperatures even begin to drop, exactly as planned. But readings on the Columbia's hydraulic systems on the left wing are still going haywire.
We see it out the front also.
When you say you lost those, are you saying they went to 0 or off-scale low? All 4 of them are off-scale low.
And they were staggered. They were, like I said, within seconds of each other.
A huge piece of thermal tile flies off the shuttle. The astronauts have no idea that the shuttle is irreversibly and rapidly disintegrating. This will be the first piece of Columbia found on the ground by investigators.
This is Houston. Please respond.
Then, a new problem from the system's tech in mission control.
Tire pressure on the left outboard and left inboard. Both tires.
Copy.
Cain's calm answer masks his confusion. Losing tire pressure means the Columbia would crash on touchdown. These are the final words between mission control and Columbia commander Rick Husband.
Left outboard and left inboard, both tires.
And Columbia, Houston, we see your tire pressure messages, and we did not copy your last.
Instrumentation, Max?
Flight Max, those are also off.
Columbia, this is Houston. Please respond.
For 2 minutes, nothing but silence.
This is Houston. Please respond. Flight, there's still no response from Columbia.
Copy.
LeRoy Cain's mind flashes back to the foam impact. In that moment, he knows the unthinkable has happened, and that NASA has made a grave mistake.
I can probably even show you, if you have the mission control video, where that thought was going through my mind.
Final one, you expecting tracking?
1 minute to go, Flight.
Columbia, Houston, UHF comm check. Columbia, Houston, UHF comm check.
Dallas TV News showed home video of the disaster before NASA's computers positively confirmed what Cain had feared.
GC flight. Flight GC, lock the doors. Copy.
Mission Control is now like a crime scene that must not be contaminated.
I just wanted to make sure that number one, folks understood that, again, stay focused on the task here. Let's stay within ourselves and stay within the system and keep doing what we know and understand how to do until we know more. And that's when I asked him to lock the doors.
Between the time the ground lost communication with the crew and the time that the orbiter broke up entirely was a span of perhaps a minute or less. And during that period of time is when the wing disintegrated. The orbiter may have started flipping around. It may have started tumbling. We're not really sure, but it was not instantaneous. There was a period of time in there when the crew probably knew that the end was near.
At 9:18, the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrates. The flagship of the fleet, a screaming fireball over the desert. Seven men and women have died on LeRoy Cain's watch.
Marty, can you confirm that the DDMS folks in the Dallas area have been mobilized to the extent we're able to?
Yeah. Rescue Coordination Center is mobilizing to that area.
These were people that I knew, that I cared about. They were part of my, certainly part of my work family, and these are people that my kids and my wife knew and had relationships with. He was part of our family, and it was difficult to think about the fact that we may have just lost him.
Now it's up to investigators to determine what went wrong.
Their mission was almost complete, and we lost them so close to home. The men and women of the Columbia had journeyed more than 6 million miles and were minutes away from arrival.
7 people are dead after the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrates over Texas. It's one of NASA's worst failures.
The rule of thumb in the space business, and the space business is a one strike and you're out business. It's not a type of business where you get another shot at bat. You can have one problem and it creates a tragedy. So you need constant vigilance. And this is the part of the foam shedding that was so unfortunate, that the impact of it was never evaluated thoroughly. The rule of thumb is fly as you test as you fly. And that meant that people should have, as changes were made, as this problem kept appearing, they should have gone and understood it much more deeply.
Hours after the disaster, NASA called upon a retired Navy admiral with no space experience and no axe to grind to conduct an inquiry.
We are going to work with the NASA officials.
Hal Gaiman's findings were detailed and damning.
I mean, the shuttle program management was unsafe. They couldn't manage anything safely. I mean, they couldn't manage a bus line safely, much less a shuttle, because of the way they were organized.
Good morning. We will follow the same process that we follow at all of our press conferences. I have
we made a template
short opening statement
of how people who do risky things manage and assess the risk. And we applied that template to the space shuttle program, and they failed miserably.
5 months after the accident, scientist G. Scott Hubbard conducted a test.
3, 2, 1, 0.
We fired a 1.7-pound piece of foam at about 500 miles an hour at the lower part of panel number 8 that had been taken off one of the other orbiters. So it had a flight history just exactly, or as close as we could, to that of Columbia. We fired that piece of foam, and it blew a hole 16 inches in diameter. There was a audible gasp from the crowd. The astronauts who were with me, one of them said, "So this is what really happened." It was clear then that we'd achieved not only a technical goal, we'd achieved a psychological goal as well.
The shuttle was mortally wounded with a large hole in the wing. During re-entry, super hot air penetrated the wing, burned through insulation, and melted the aluminium structure like candle wax.
Instead of a period behind our findings, we had an exclamation mark.
Some managers retired, and others were reassigned.
There are some people who did the wrong things. They conducted serious discussions in the hallway. They didn't request detailed information. They made decisions based on flawed thinking. It didn't hurt me yesterday, it won't hurt me today. And those individuals now are no longer part of the program.
The shuttle program was an unsafe program. The ground team broke its covenant with the astronauts. That covenant is that when we put you up in space and while you're up in space, we will do everything we possibly can to ensure your safe return. And that they did not do everything that they could to ensure the safe return of the Columbia.
Could anything have been done to save the lives of the 7 astronauts aboard Columbia?
There is nothing on board, no repair kit, no collection of materials that would not have burned up upon re-entry at that 3,000 degree temperature. The other option was a rescue mission. This country has done incredible things to rescue people over the years. It would undoubtedly have been a decision at the highest levels to pursue this, because what if the next orbiter had the same foam problem and on launch another hole was created? You would have to weigh a huge set of contingencies and problems and issues against each other. But the answer we came up with was, it is in principle possible for a rescue mission.
Since the Columbia disaster, astronauts do spacewalks to inspect the shuttle's hull for damage, as well as a video inspection. If they find damage, there's now a toolbox aboard to fix basic problems. Simple solutions to a catastrophe that cost lives. LeRoy Cain remains a top NASA flight operative since Columbia. To this day, he thinks not knowing was a blessing in disguise.
The difference would have been that we on the ground and the crew on board would have known. And that, of course, would have been maybe even unbearable for some of us.
There is no short answer to what caused this disaster. There was both a mechanical cause and an organizational cause. The mechanical cause was a piece of foam fell off of the external tank and hit the leading edge of the wing, poked a hole in the wing, and tried to enter the Earth's atmosphere with a hole in its wing. But the organization of the shuttle program is equally a cause. And it is our judgment that if this piece of foam had not fallen off and caused the loss of Columbia, something else would have caused the loss of another shuttle sometime in the near future due to the management scheme and the organizational scheme that they were using. The shuttle program was an unsafe program.
Astronaut Julie Payette says the 7 crew members knew the risk they were taking.
They loved what they did. They had a great mission in space. It was extremely successful, SCS-107, for its scientific content. And I know that every single one of them would have boarded the shuttle the next morning if they could have. And that was our duty, to continue to explore, because that's what they believed in.
Payette's dreaming of going back to space. She says her friend Rick Husband would have wanted it that way.
That's interesting. I never thought it could have been me. It never crossed my mind. I just wish it wasn't them.